Lucas or Luke, chapters 14 and 15. And it came to be, as he went into the house of one of the rulers of the Pharisees to eat bread on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. And there was a certain man before him, suffering from dropsy. And Yeshua, responding, spoke to those learned in the Torah and the Pharisees, saying, "Is it right to heal on the Sabbath?" But they were silent. So, taking hold of him, he healed him and let him go. And to them he said, "Which of you, having a donkey or an ox that's fallen into a pit, shall not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day?" And they were unable to answer him regarding these matters. And he spoke a parable to those who were invited, when he noted how they chose the best places, saying to them, "When you're invited by anyone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in the best place, lest one more distinguished than you be invited by him, and he who invited you and him come to you and say, 'Give this one that place.' And then you begin with shame to take the last place. Rather, when you're invited, go sit down in the last place, so that when he who invited you comes, he shall say to you, 'Friend, come up higher.' Then you shall have esteem in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. For everyone who's exalting himself shall be humbled, and he who is humbling himself shall be exalted." And he also said to him who invited him, "When you give a dinner or a supper, do not ask your friends, nor your brothers, nor your relatives, nor your rich neighbors, lest they also invite you back and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite poor ones, crippled ones, lame ones, blind ones, and you shall be blessed, because they do not have to repay you. You shall be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." And when one of those who sat at the table with him heard this, he said to him, "Blessed is he who eats bread in the reign of Elohim." But he said to him, "A certain man, having a great supper and invited many, sent his servant at supper time to say to those who are invited, 'Come, for it's all now ready.' But one by one, they all began making excuses. The first said to him, 'I've bought a field and I need to go see it. I ask you, have me excused.' Another said, 'I've bought 5 yoke of oxen and I'm going to try them out. I ask that you have me excused.' And another said, 'I've married a wife, and because of this I'm unable to come.' And the servant came and reported this to his master. Then the master of the house, being wroth, said to his servant, 'Hurry out into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in here the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind.' And the servant said, 'Master, it's done as you commanded, and still there's room.' And the master said to the servant, 'Go out into the street corners and hedges, and compel them to come in, so that my house is filled. For I say to you that none of those men who were invited shall taste my supper.' And large crowds were going with him. And turning, he said to them, 'If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and his children, his brothers and sisters, his own life too, he is unable to be my taught one. And whoever does not bear his stake and come after me is unable to be my taught one. For who of you, wishing to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was unable to finish.' Or, 'What sovereign going to fight against another sovereign does not sit down first and take counsel whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks conditions of peace. So then, every one of you who does not give up all he has is unable to be my taught one. The salt is good, but if the salt becomes tasteless, what shall it be seasoned? It's not fit for land nor for manure. Throw it out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear." In chapter 15. Now all the tax collectors and the sinners were coming to him to hear him, and the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, "This one receives sinners and eats with them." And he spoke this parable to them, saying, "What man among you, having 100 sheep, and having lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost, until he finds it? And having found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And having come home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost.' I say to you, in the same way there shall be more joy in the heaven over one sinner repenting than over 99 righteous ones who need no repentance. Or what woman, having 10 drachmas, if she loses 1 drachma, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently till she finds it? And having found it, she calls friends and neighbors together, saying, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found the drachma which I lost.' I say to you, in the same way there is joy in the presence of the messengers of Elohim over one sinner repenting." And he said, "A certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me my portion, the portion of goods falling to me.' And he divided his livelihood between them. And not many days after, the younger son, having gathered all together, went away to a distant country and took his goods with him, and there wasted his goods with loose living. Now, when he had spent all of it, there arose a severe scarcity of food throughout all the land, and he began to be in need. And he went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him to his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to fill his stomach with the pods which the pigs were eating, and no one gave to him. But having come to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I'm perishing with hunger? Having risen, I shall go to my father and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' And having risen, he went to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against the heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fattened calf here and slaughter it, and let us eat and rejoice. Because this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to rejoice. The older son was in the field. And when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And having called one of the servants, asked, 'What does this mean?' And he said to him, Your brothers come, and your father slaughtered the fattened calf because he received him back in health." And the older son was wroth and would not go in. So his father came out and pleaded with him. And answering, he said to his father, "These many years I've been serving you, I've never transgressed a command of yours. But to me, you've never even given a young goat, so I could rejoice with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who's devoured your livelihood with whores, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him." Father said to the son, "Son, you are always with me, and all I have is yours." And we had to rejoice and be glad, for your brother was dead and now is alive. He was lost and is found.